In the afternoon hours of New Year's Day, most of Norfolk, Virginia burned to the ground. It was a fiery siege from British troops that opened the year of America's founding. St. Paul's Episcopal Church still carries that scar from 1776, a story of faith and history through the lens. Hello, welcome to History Through the Lens. I'm Tom Schaad, your host, and today we're going to talk about a really fascinating topic as we go into the year celebrating America's 250th birthday. We're going to go back to New Year's Day of 1776 and the Burning of Norfolk. Yes, it burned down at one time, and for a long time, we thought it was just the British who were responsible, but of course, the story is very interesting and very nuanced. We're going to bring in gentleman Nat McCormick from the St. Paul's Episcopal Church Historical Committee. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
And you have given a lot of tours and talked a lot about this issue and about this time in Norfolk history especially. And it was an interesting time because we were just getting started pretty much as a country. And matter of fact, before we declared independence, we were in the American Revolution. Tell me, what was Norfolk like in this period of 1775 to the New Year's Day of 1776?
So it's hard for us to imagine today with a large city, an urban area with tall buildings and a population of about 250,000 people. But if you were to go back in time 250 years, the city of Norfolk, or it was then a borough, would look very different. The population of the city was several thousand people, so not much larger than a big high school. Life was obviously very different. When we tour our Boy Scout or Girl Scout groups, we have them imagine what is life like without airplanes and automobiles and televisions and cell phones and so forth.
A 3-mile-per-hour world.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah.
And if you look at the time, 1776, we're talking churches were very important.
Absolutely.
And the St. Paul's Episcopal Church was the church at that time in Norfolk, was it not?
It was. At that moment in time, prior to the Revolution, if you were a citizen of the colony, you had one choice of church. That was the Anglican Church. St. Paul's at that time was the borough church. So it didn't get named St. Paul's until the 19th century, but you would have been a citizen and I would have been a member of the borough church.
And people were expected to attend.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you're talking about not mixing, the state and politics, with religion at that time, it was very much integrated in our polite society, was it not?
Very much. The church served a number of social roles at different points in time. There was actually a poorhouse or a home to take care of elderly or indigent people, orphans. Took place right on the grounds. The vestry of the church were also the leaders in the community. So think your city council members were also leading the church. It served the educational role. So today's Norfolk Academy was born at St. Paul's Church, or the borough church.
Oh, it's fascinating. Now, we're going to go back to the American Revolution and the period 1775, 1776, the mood of the area, the flavor of the area. We're talking about, when you look at the streets that are named in the Freemason area, for example, we have a lot of British names there.
Absolutely.
So it was a loyalist enclave, was it not?
It was very much, and think about the establishment of Norfolk goes out almost 100 years earlier than the Revolution. So that came about because the Crown found it difficult to tax the colonies. Settlements were scattered. They needed centralized points where they could more easily administer the collection of taxes. So the king enacted a settlement act in 1680. As a result of that, Norfolk was surveyed and established in 1682.
And now Lord Dunmore, he was the governor at the time of the Revolution. Who was Lord Dunmore?
Lord Dunmore is a fascinating character, and we could talk all day about him, I think. As you said, he was the governor at the time of the Revolution, which also means he was the last royal governor in Virginia. He was a Scot, and there's a complicated backstory to that, which is that if any of your viewers are fans of the show Outlander, you may remember the lead male character has a terrible experience in the Battle of Culloden, which is when the Scots were rising against the British to try to put the Stuart house back on the throne. And that ended very badly for the Scots. Lord Dunmore's father was a major player in that uprising, and he ended up in the Tower of London, but eventually was released. And the younger Dunmore, John Murray, actually went into the British Army, so he had served as a soldier and then got appointed. He must have found his way back into the good graces and was appointed as governor first of New York.
Okay. Wow. And then Dunmore then as governor of Virginia, he didn't have a lot of people skills, did he?
No, apparently not. He may have been okay in his military endeavors, and that's what he seemed to focus on as governor. He had a lot of troops on sort of the western frontier skirmishing with Native Americans. That was expensive. And as a result, new taxes had to be implemented. Obviously, the locals didn't like that just as much then as they do now. Yeah,
there was a little bit about that going around at the time about no taxation without representation.
Correct. So he also wasn't very good at managing the local government through the colonial House of Burgesses. And at one point, when they wanted to take their complaints over to England, he refused and actually disestablished the House at that time.
Well, now we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and get to the meat of our story, the burning of Norfolk, what led up to it, and, of course, the fallout after that day, New Year's Day, 1776. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Wavy Plus. This is History Through the Lens. I'm Tom Schaad with guest Nat McCormick from St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Norfolk. We are talking about that day, New Year's Day, 1776, the burning of Norfolk in St. Paul's, which is still around today. The building is still here. The only one to survive the conflagration that was the burning of Norfolk. So let's go back to, I guess, the latter days of 1775.
Right.
We're fighting the American Revolution. We are not yet a nation. The Declaration of Independence is still several months away. So what led up to that day, January 1st?
So we were talking earlier about the last colonial governor, who is the central figure in all of these events. He has made the capital in Williamsburg a not very happy place, and all kinds of things are fomenting around Virginia. In March of 1775, Patrick Henry gives his famous Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech in Richmond. And very shortly thereafter, about 3 weeks later, Lord Dunmore makes a big mistake by feeling threatened and asking his Royal Marines to empty all of the gunpowder out of the magazine in what's now Colonial Williamsburg. The magazine still exists. That was deeply upsetting to the locals and seen as the confiscation of something that rightfully belonged to them.
It shows you how strongly they felt about arming the populace, especially at that time.
Absolutely. And that finds its way into our founding documents not long thereafter.
Wow. So after that, 2 weeks later, he evacuates his family from Williamsburg and retreats to York County, and then conducts raids on plantations along the river.
He's feeling stressed about being in Williamsburg, and he flees. So for a brief period, he's there on the York River and looting some of the plantations. Then he ends up with his fleet in Norfolk Harbor, and thus begins the series of events that lead to the burning of Norfolk. The first one is that local militias are forming. So a group of Patriot militia has assembled at Kemp Landing, now Kempsville.
Kempsville.
And there are roughly 170 men there. Dunmore hears about it and sends 120 of his own troops to see what's going on. They end up having a brief battle. The British are much better prepared and trained, and they soundly defeat the local militia. Shortly after that, we have what is becoming better and better known, I think, in Revolutionary history, which is the Battle of Great Bridge. And this was an extremely important event at the beginning of the Revolution.
It was a rout against the British, right?
The tables turned.
Yeah.
So down at Great Bridge, just about 9 miles south of the city of Norfolk, there was a crossing over the river, and that was the road, the only connection road, so an important route for travel and supplies down to North Carolina. So the Patriot militia had retreated to the south side of the bridge at Great Bridge, and there was a small settlement there. They were joined by a number of North Carolina militiamen marching north. Again, Dunmore hears about that. In fact, he has already built, knowing the strategic location of Great Bridge, he's built a wooden palisade or a small fort on the north side of the river. So he sends troops down that way, and he's got about 400 men. He has underestimated the local force, which actually numbers over 800 men. They size each other up for a brief period, and then Dunmore's troops go marching across the bridge. So just imagine being in that open position, marching across a river on a wooden plank bridge without any cover or protection. The Patriots, of course, have secured themselves behind bulwarks and safe places on the other side. They wait until just the right moment, fire when you see the whites of their eyes, and the British troops are mowed down. Yeah. It's a rout.
60 to 100 British killed or wounded, one
That's
Patriot wounded.
Yeah.
That was it.
Significant.
Yeah.
So they are humbled and shamed. The British remaining troops retreat back up to Norfolk. Now, at that time, the British are on the water in the ships of Dunmore's fleet. The Patriots occupy the land, so you can imagine them facing off over this brief stretch of water, which may have been less than 100 yards distant.
So where Town Point Park is, in this general area, this is where it's all happening. You have the British coming in, and they're staring down the Patriots who occupy what is a loyalist colony, basically in downtown Norfolk, right?
That's important information. So Norfolk was important then for the same reason it is now. It's always been a deep water port. That's good for trade. A lot of the local people were merchants who depended on trade with Great Britain and other colonies. So there were a great number of loyalists here. At this point in time, they're probably asking themselves what to do. Many of them joined Dunmore on his ships in the harbor there. So they've given up their homes.
And then what leads to the conflagration, basically?
So this is only 3 weeks following his defeat at Great Bridge. Dunmore needs supplies. He's got a lot of men and families on these ships. They need food and supplies. They ask the town to provide them and are rebuffed, strongly rebuffed. And this is all occurring during the Christmas season.
Well, the tension is building too. And you know what? With that, we're going to take one more break, and then we're going to come back and talk about the moment and the burning of Norfolk, and of course, the aftermath, right after this. Back with History Through the Lens, I'm Tom Schaad here on Wavy Plus, and we're talking about the burning of Norfolk on New Year's Day of 1776. And you may have seen St. Paul's Episcopal Church with the cannonball on the wall, but let's get back to that day. Now, we're going to the holiday season here. We just came off Great Bridge, a huge victory for the Americans, and now we're looking at what led up to the tension. It kind of just exploded on New Year's Day. Walk us through that.
Possibly the event that tipped the scales and had Dunmore act was the locals' refusal to reprovision his ships. He needed supplies. He didn't get them. He's been humbled at Great Bridge. He's probably frustrated at sitting on his fleet in the harbor. So in the afternoon hours of New Year's Day, 1776, he finally orders his 4 warships, which have been stationed right as close as they could get to the waterfront, and orders them to fire on the city.
So this is where Town Point Park is, basically, like in that general area on Elizabeth River. Imagine that if you're coming across the bridge and you see this, if you're driving on the Berkeley Bridge and you actually would see it right in front of you happening.
You would, probably where the ferry comes over from Portsmouth.
Right.
That was where the town was concentrated, and you're raising an important point that the waterfront was the focus of the old city. That's where all of the mercantile buildings were, the warehouses for goods, the supply shops, the shipbuilding facilities and docking facilities.
That's what Dunmore wanted targeted.
Yes, he did. So that was his original intent, and things went a little bit awry. He fired on those waterfront buildings with the intention of damaging a number of them. He actually had troops land to target other specific strategic buildings and destroy those. The locals were focused more on rebuffing those troops than the fire that was starting around them. And apparently during that day, it was fairly windy. So once the fires started, they took off, and you see, you get a good sense of that, I think, in these illustrations, contemporary.
These were illustrations from the time, weren't they?
Correct.
Wow.
Right.
So you really get a sense of the terror of what this must have been like. Of course, we see historical recreations all the time, and
Right.
and just hard to imagine your whole city burning down, but it wasn't all the British either. We come to learn later that the Patriots may be responsible for this too.
Absolutely. This is history that was discovered a little bit later. So immediately after the event, the Virginians are furious. It's easy to point fingers at the British and say they were responsible for everything. But a number of things caused the Patriots to act as well. One is the fact that you mentioned earlier, there were a lot of loyalists in town, so their homes and businesses were targeted and looted and burned.
By the Patriots.
Absolutely.
So Americans on Americans, basically. Again, we didn't call them Americans yet, but...
It must have been a very divided time because Norfolk in particular, as a port city with strong ties to England, really had a much more equal mix than other places would.
And this really set things off. Tell us about the cannonball. The cannonball we see in the wall. Everyone talks about it at, there it is right there, fired by Lord Dunmore on January 1st, 1776.
So if you're a tourist coming to Norfolk for the first time, hopefully this is your destination. You mentioned St. Paul's is the only building that survived that moment. And part of that, hopefully part of it, is the fact that it was a church and you weren't necessarily targeting it. And secondly, the fact that it is a brick structure. The majority of structures would have been wood.
Right.
And the walls are 2.5 feet thick. So it's kind of hard to knock down. So what happened, the souvenir that was left, whether errant or deliberate, a shot hit the very corner of the church facing the water, and the cannonball was lodged there for some period. At some point in time, it fell out and was buried in the ground beneath that hole. And remember, after Norfolk burned, it was forgotten for the rest of the Revolution. There wasn't, nobody could live here. There wasn't any activity. Nobody was going to church. The church was not destroyed, but it was damaged. We believe the interior was completely burned. At least some of the roof was burned, although I have crawled up there and found charred timbers still in place.
You're kidding.
No.
Oh, I did not know that.
That's an exciting detail. There are very few contemporary accounts of what exactly happened and what the conditions were. So we have a brief description from the architect Latrobe, who did a lot of work in Washington and was very well known. He stopped in Norfolk and wrote a few lines about the church being unpewed and unsealed.
Oh. Wow.
And the rest is left up to our imagination.
And we still have scars and remnants today, of course, the most visible of which we're looking at right now, that cannonball. But it was found in the ground, wasn't it? Like about 70 years later?
Exactly. So in the 1840s, the caretaker of the church was apparently working in the area, and you can think about his shovel going clunk against something, and he digs around in the dirt and uncovers what is the cannonball. At that time, the city of Richmond, now the capital of Virginia, very much wanted it as a souvenir and asked that it be sent to Richmond.
No way.
St. Paul's said no way.
Ain't happening.
Exactly, and cemented it in place where it has been for the last 180 years.
And a testament to our independence that we won from Great Britain several years later. After the Great Burning of Norfolk in 1776, we would get the Declaration of Independence from Thomas Jefferson about 6 months later, and so begins the story of the, I guess, post-revolution American experience, and we continue to live it today, nearly 250 years later. Nat McCormick, thank you for joining me today on History Through the Lens. It was a fascinating conversation. And thank you. Of course, we air every week, and we're always making history.